Welcome to another edition of the Ultimate Weigh-In Show. I'm your host, Manpreet, aka MMA Lock of the Night, and your boy on Twitter at MMALOT. And this week we're going over a big UFC 263 card, headlined by 2 title fights, and as well as another 5-round main event. We got Israel Adesanya going up against Marvin Vettori for the middleweight title. We got Davison Figueiredo and Brandon Moreno going head-to-head for the flyweight title. They had fought back in December, if you guys remember. And then lastly, we have a 5-round. This is the first time we've ever done it. Non-title fight, non-main event, 5-round fight between Nate Diaz and Leon Edwards. You gotta believe it's it was Nate Diaz that was able to call up the UFC and be like, hey, either give me a main event or give me 5 rounds so I can do the most work possible with 25 minutes rather than just being brought down to 3 rounds. So I'm looking forward to it. Great scraps all around. Leon Edwards, Nate Diaz, like I was talking about. Mozart Evloev versus Hakeem Dawodu is another great fight. Not to mention Drew Dober versus Brad Riddell. So there's a ton of firefights on this card that I can't wait to get into. And I brought a solid cast of guys with me, as I do every single week for you guys. I'm trying to get through everybody at least once before I start repeating guests. So it's going to be a little while still before you guys see a repetitive guest. But I do want to give these guys some shine because they truly deserve it. So I'll bring these guys in one by one. I'm sure you guys have heard of most of them. If not, you guys will get familiar with them after this stream, and I'll make sure that you guys follow them as well because I have all their Twitter handles in the description below. All right, first and foremost, we're going to bring in my guy, Scott Shelvok. I've had him on my show before. I believe it was the 100th episode. If you guys tuned in for that one, that was back at UFC 254. Scott, what's going on, my brother?
Not much, man. How about you?
Good, man. I was happy that you accepted the call because I wasn't 100% sure if you were still in the MMA game or not, but you are slowly doing your thing in the background, just creeping up over the counter and still doing all your stuff. So I'm happy to have you to still be in the MMA world, brother.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. Excited to talk some fights.
Hell yeah, brother. All right, next up, we'll bring in my guy, Scrap Capper, another fun guy, another solid handicapper that I've been conversing with back and forth for the last couple years now. Scrap, what's going on, my brother?
Not much, man. What about you?
Good, man. I'm happy that you agreed to come on, and you actually saved the show because you're the last guy that I was able to round out. I had somebody fall out yesterday, so shout out to you for doing your best Donald Cerrone impression, jumping in on short notice and trying to save the show. So very much looking forward to breaking down the card with you as well. And then lastly, we got my man, Gugabe. If you guys are familiar with the MMA betting scene, he's probably one of the top guys out there. I believe he does some work with Betfair down there in Australia as well. Gugabe, what's going on, my brother?
Yeah, not much. Taking a while. Good to be on here, and some solid Southern Hemisphere representation. We've got Jermaine from the Concords, and hey.
Exactly. You got guys up here from Canada and then below us are pretty much from down under. So I'm glad that we got some good mix of talent and characters here to help me break down this UFC 263 card. So like I said at the top of the show, the links to their Twitter accounts are in the description below. So make sure you guys go give them a follow because they truly deserve it. They are definitely one of the sharp guys one of the more sharper guys that we have in this industry. So I believe they deserve a solid platform like this one to showcase their skills. All right, let's not waste too much time because we got 14 fights that we need to get through. First and foremost, we got my guy Jake Collier making his return, going up against Mr. Carlos Felipe. In terms of odds, we're sticking at minus 160 right now for Carlos Felipe, plus 150 for Jake Collier. I'll kick things off here. You guys know I like me some Jake Collier. I felt like I was one of the few guys on an island on Collier last time around, as I felt like he still had a little bit more to give, and we were given that narrative of if somebody gets knocked out in their last fight, they're probably going to get knocked out every single time out after that. But I truly don't believe in that type of narrative. I thought Jake still has a little bit to give to us, and he showed it in that Gian Villante fight, albeit it was fat Gian Villante, a heavyweight Gian Villante who probably wasn't putting in too much work back then. But now you're getting a guy that's between Tom Aspinall and Gian Villante. You're getting Carlos Felipe, who, seems like his mind is there, but he seems more of a bruiser, a guy that wants to go out there and try to take your head off. And I feel like that's going to cause him to overswing here against a guy in against a guy in Jake Collier who likes to mix it up and has a little bit more variety, right? He doesn't throw a ton on his shot, so I'm not expecting a knockout of any sort from Mr. Jake Collier here, but I do think that he'll mix it up well in terms of strikes to the head, to the body, and to the legs. And I think it's kind of going to cause Carlos Felipe a little bit of confusion. So I'm very excited to see Collier go out there and actually implement that type of game plan. And I gave it out on the prop show last night. I'm looking at Jake Collier by decision at plus 330. I think that's a solid spot here. But even at plus money as an underdog, I fully expect this fight to be closer to a pick'em, or even with Jake Collier as a slight favorite. But people continue to like fading that dad bod, or I don't even know what you can call it at this point in time. That's a far from a dad bod, but Jake Collier still goes out there and has a solid performance last time around. I expect him to go out there and replicate that same thing this time. So I'm going with Jake Collier via decision. Scott, I'll hand it on over to you. Am I too high on the prototype, or do you think that Carlos Felipe has the chops to go out there and do what a favorite should do?
Yeah, I think you're too high on him. I mean, we know the guy's a 185er, moves to 205, and now he's up at heavyweight, and he is going straight to the max weight you can be. I mean, it's hard to take the guy seriously when he's just like not professional at all. I mean, he's just like, it just seems like he's here until the wheels fall off, and I don't know. But what makes it really frustrating is he's actually a good fighter. He's got fast hands, decent wrestling, clinch game, and he mixes it all together really well. And he actually lands 4.92 significant strikes per minute with 123 in his last outing, which is crazy when you look at him, you wouldn't think he's capable of that kind of volume. But that being said, his last fight was against a natural 205er. This will be his only second fight against a true heavyweight. And the last time he got flatlined inside a minute. Felipe, like you said, not as good as Aspinall, but he does have a pretty underrated boxing game. And he's got a ton of heart. And with the size, I just think that's enough. He also lands 4.42 significant strikes per minute, so he should be able to match Collier's volume. And then when you add that, and then just that he's going to land the natural heavier shots, I think he just takes the win. I also think he gives Collier problems with his powerful straight cross to the body. So he lands that. I pretty much will on all the opponents. So yeah, picks Felipe.
All right, one Jake Collier hater in the video already. Scrap Capper, are you going to follow suit there, or do you also believe that I'm a little bit too high on Jake Collier in this situation?
I don't think you're too far off. For me, Collier was definitely decided that crazy opener, wherever it was, like north of plus 200 or whatever. At the current line, yeah, not super tempting. I agree with Scott that Felipe probably has the cleaner boxing, but I do think if Collier's able to stay mobile across like the course of the 3 rounds, that his footwork, and if he can just kind of implement more of like an outside kicking game, that might give Felipe some issues. He's not very fleet of foot. He does kind of seem to get frustrated and struggle a bit when someone isn't just standing there to be hit in front of him. He does that whole kind of posturing bit and gets frustrated. Also pretty terrible in the clinch. Like De Castro just pushed him up against the cage, so did Taffer, and just leant on him. And he's, looking to the referee, throwing his hands up, looking for a way out. Doesn't really seem to be able to navigate his way out of those positions on his own. So yeah, I think the current line's probably about right, to be honest. I do have a little bit of Collier decision plus 350. Felipe KO plus 300's not terrible, I think. But yeah, I would probably prefer to be on that Collier decision side. I just think, yeah, if he can blend the clinch game and the striking, and maybe if he could get a takedown, that'd be massive, because I'm not sure Felipe has much of a get-up game like we saw against Spivak. I'm not sure Collier's going to be able to get that. But yeah, if he can just mix everything up, stay mobile, lateral movement, and just kind of try and make Felipe chase him around the cage, I think he's got a pretty good shot at making this a close fight.
Yeah, I really hope we see Collier actually mix it up, not just take a striking approach like he did against John Volante. If he is able to mix up some clinch work and some takedowns, it should definitely be a lot more, a lot more convincing towards the judges. Gagabi, the opener on this for Collier was plus 245, and it got quickly steamed down to about plus 160, plus 150 ish. First of all, do you agree with the opener? And two, how do you actually see this fight going down?
I picked up a bunch of plus 200-ish just because it was moving, and I'm not massively invested here in terms of my own opinion, but I feel like it's kind of hilarious people acting like Carlos Felipe is in so much better shape than Jake Collier. Come on.
Yeah.
Neither of them are exactly physical specimens. But honestly, I think this should just be close. Collier's a bit more diverse. Felipe, I think I trust his power and chin a little bit more. Collier maybe grappling upside, but I don't think you rely on seeing it. But I was reasonably hard on Felipe after seeing the Castro fight, because again, at heavyweight, it's just being able to actually throw 150 strikes in 15 minutes is actually a fucking viable win condition, particularly if you're tough. But then the Taffer fight, you probably should have lost that. So I don't know. At the moment, I would bet Collier plus 150 if I had to, and the go to distance wasn't bad back at minus 110, but now it's kind of gone. And do you want to play go to distance in the heavyweight fight where they're going to land hundreds of strikes? Like, neither of them seem particularly powerful, but, it's heavyweight. Somebody drops every so often. I'm just kind of agnostic at this line. I think Collier could be a little bit tighter, but Collier decision's not bad. I think that's like plus 350-ish. Yeah, plus 350. But
safe to say you're on the Collier side here, yeah?
Oh, yeah, well, for the current line, I guess.
Perfect. All right, let's keep things moving along because, like I said, we got a 14-fight card to get through, so we're going to be sludging through this. And this is the fight that I'm probably most questionable about and probably least confident about. We got Firas Ziam going up against Luigi Vendramini. We got minus 120 on Ziam and plus 110 on Vendramini. Very close fight, pretty much at all bookies. There's a couple of spots that actually have it as a pick'em, and then there's even a spot that has him Ziam all the way up to minus 140. Scott, I'll actually let you kick off the breakdown for this fight. How are you feeling about this one? And do you think the underdog the slight underdog Luigi Vendramini is able to pull it off?
Yeah, so I'm picking Luigi here, but this is like a really tough fight to get a read on. Luigi, he gives me some red flags in the fact that he's only fought twice in the last 3 years, and he has only been in the third round once. And I believe that fight ended in like 30 seconds into the third round, so it's a bit worrisome. He showed some powerful hands though in his last outing. His debut, he looked really good for the first round or so, or most of the first round against Zaleski, which was a short notice fight at 170 pounds. And he showed decent wrestling and grappling in that fight. Ziam also seems half decent. His striking seems good. If he gets his kicking game going, I can see it giving some guys some issues. However, he was taken down 8 times in his first 2 UFC fights, and he should be 0-2 in my opinion. So it's hard to pick him against someone that just seems a little bit more well-rounded, but there's no real confidence in that pick.
Sorry, you're on the Vendramini side, yeah?
Yeah, Vendramini.
All right, Scrap, how are you feeling about this one? I'm seeing a lot of people out there even pounding my DMs saying that Vendramini plus 500 via submission should be the prop of the night. How are you feeling about that approach for this fight? And ultimately, how do you see this fight going?
Yeah, I agree with both you guys. I'm on Vendramini, across money line, sub or decision, and also the sub down our ways. I think he can get sub at plus 900, which is pretty wild for a guy who's shown he'll go out there and really force grappling and is shown to be a pretty proficient back taker and finisher. So yeah, I like Vendramini as the dog. I think you can trust him to go out there and force his game plan, whereas Ziam's not really a guy who's physically overwhelming enough that he's going to be able to deter him from trying to force that grappling. He's got a nice jab and outside kicking game, but like Scott said, we've seen him be taken down multiple times so far. So yeah, I would back Vendramini as the dog. Cardio questions and things like that, but you're not going to tick every box when you're playing an underdog, but I think he's the side for me.
Gugabe, I know a lot of people took Justin Ayari last time around against Vendramini strictly off of the long layoff that we saw Vendramini have to go through to get back to the cage. And Vendramini shut everybody up by getting that quick finish the way that he did. Do you think he replicates the same performance this time around against Firas Ziam? Because he's clearly going to have the strength advantage and probably the grappling advantage too. But do you think he utilizes it successfully here against Firas Ziam?
I think I personally care more about what he did in the Zaleski fight, where he immediately wrestled against a better striker. I think if he does that here, Ziam's grappling game is ugly and unfunctional. I felt with Malarkey, it was more because Malarkey got a bit greedy, trying to go for transitions, going from out, got shucked off, and it wasn't really a product of Ziam showing much off his back. So yeah, as a consequence, I think Vendramini is the spot. But if you get in live bet, exiting after a round's probably a good idea because you don't know what Vendramini's tank is like. He's only been to minute 8 twice, I think. So maybe he just falls off a cliff. I got a lot of the under at plus money, the under 2.5. I've got some Vendramini at plus money, early sub. I don't know, decent diversity, and I've got a bunch of I've got some Ziam in case he gets a late finish. You never know if Vendramini just turns out to have 6 minutes of cardio and just dies. But, For sure, you can't really bank on somebody having cardio if you haven't truly seen it. So I definitely like that angle. And you guys know me. You guys know I like that third round prop. So Ziam in round 3 currently sits at plus 1,300 and probably deserves a little bit of a sprinkle. But Gugabe hit it on the head. This is a great live betting opportunity as well. If he's able to get it out of that first round and you see Luigi starting to slow down a little bit, you're probably going to get a really good line on Ziam because that would probably mean that Vendramini was successful with this grappling approach in the first round. But if he wasn't successful in terms of getting the finish, he's probably going to be huffing and puffing
himself, and Ziam should probably go out there and outstrike him on the feet. Just go out there and stick and move and just strike from distance. My issue is I feel like he's still a little bit green. I feel like he still needs some work. I think they threw him into the UFC a little bit too early. I feel like he still needs to fill out in his body. It doesn't seem like he's that strong of a fighter, which is not good, especially when you just look at Luigi Vendramini alone. You're just like, oh, this guy's probably going to toss him around. So if Ziam can get out of that first round, I think it gets a little bit safer for him. And ultimately, I'm going to pick the Ziam side to win this fight via decision. I might sprinkle that round 3 prop, like I said, at plus 1,300. But again, very little confidence on this fight. It seems like I'm on a bit of an island with Ziam here. But again, I'm not running to the betting window to actually put some money on a guy for us Ziam in this spot.
Yeah, I'd definitely try and grab the live bet. If you can get on after round 1, you've probably answered most of the questions and good chance to get a better price. If Vendramini just backpack them for a minute, 5 minutes, and then it's like you're getting plus 200, plus 300 Ziam, and that's like, better spot.
Perfect. All right, let's move along here. We got Steven Peterson going up against Chase Hooper. Chase Hooper trying to build on his win over Peter Barrett last time around. We got minus 110 on Peterson and plus 100 on Chase Hooper's scrap. I'm actually going to let you kick this one off. How are you feeling about the young prodigy and Chase Hooper trying to get a win over the wily veteran Steven Peterson tomorrow night?
Yeah, not good. Hooper's just not a UFC fighter, plain and simple. I mean, the guy is like a regional level jiu-jitsu guy at best. I mean, I think I've bet against him in just about all of his UFC fights, and not stopping here. I'm on Peterson. The guy just has no way to win minutes unless he's finding the back take or getting the sub, to be convincingly losing to a guy like Pete Barrett before, pulling out a Hail Mary outside heel hook. Yeah, I mean, I just don't see how he gets it done outside that sub, so I don't understand why to pick him and why Hooper's not, like plus 200 if his path to victory is pulling a sub out of his ass, basically.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are leaving money on the table if they're just taking Chase Hooper straight up here. I think he could go out there and pull off the sub if he needs to. But Steven Peterson, 9 losses in his 27 fight career, has never been submitted. So this might be a tough task for Chase Hooper. Gugabe, how are you feeling about this one? I'm pretty certain that you're going to say that Mr. Chase Hooper got lucky last time around, that he's going up against Pete Barrett and not somebody that actually has some legitimate skill, which I think that we'll see here with Steven Peterson. But how are you feeling about this fight?
Yeah, pretty much. Hooper, Barrett is like, Yusuf Zalal looked like Demian Maia against him. He's not a fucking good grappler. It's actually possible that Peterson's the better grappler here. It's not like Chase Hooper is Corin Gracie. He's not. He hasn't won 80cc titles. He's not like a proven, really known grappling ability guy. It's a specialty, but he could just be pretty good at the specialty. There's no proof that he's like some insane grappling savant. So I'm like, it's actually quite possible that Peterson is either competitive on the ground or just better. Peterson almost got a decent tap on Pena. I'd take Pena in a grappling match over Hooper pretty comfortably because Pena is just massive and actually like an adult. So and also it's like Peterson hasn't fought in 2 years. He's 30 years old. People acting like we've seen the finished product of Peterson, but it's like he's 30. It's not like he's 45. He fought as a decent gym. It's got less of a glow up than it used to because, back in the day, people always that Ryan Spann is a technical genius. But now, he's had a good gym. How much? I don't think Hooper can really get that much better. Peterson sucks him standing, and I really don't think the grappling is an automatic win for Hooper.
Yeah, I like me some Peterson in this spot too. And just like Scrap, I'm kind of surprised that the line is as close as it is. I think there is some value on Peterson in this spot, especially to go out there and outstrike with Hooper. And Gugabe just dropping some fire for you guys, thinking that Peterson is probably the better grappler in this situation, which might surprise some people. But I'm not surprised by that. I do agree with him there. I don't think he's that much better than him, but I think it's good enough that he can remain competitive with Chase Hooper. And again, Chase Hooper seems like a one-trick type of pony. His durability is there, so good for him in that situation, which is why he was able to pull out the victory over Peter Barrett last time around. But I still do lean with Peterson here. I will give Hooper the benefit of the doubt in terms of being durable, which is why I'll ultimately take Peterson to win this fight by decision. But man, again, I think this fight is a little bit of a steal in terms of the line that you're getting on Peterson. And like I said, he's a wily veteran. The guy has 27 fights. He's been fighting all over the place in the regional scene, and he has some solid experience inside the UFC too. But that 2-year layoff or so that he's coming off of, I don't think it's going to have that much of an impact on him here, especially against not so dangerous opponent in Chase Hooper. So I like me some Steven Peterson. I'll be taking him to win by decision, but even that straight line around -120 even money is just absolute money in my opinion. Scott, are we not doing enough credence or giving enough legitimacy to Chase Hooper, or are you on the Steven Peterson train as well?
Yeah, I'm going the other way. I'm picking Hooper actually. I think Peterson, like, he's just like a bottom level gatekeeper. There's nothing that special about him. He's got decent grappling, decent wrestling, okay striking. He comes from Fortis MMA, so good gym. But I mean, he's overly reckless when he fights, as far as like positionally and everything, and he just hasn't really put his skill set together. And obviously, Chase Hooper, like, you can't really sugarcoat what we've seen. He got, his jiu-jitsu, like Agube said, is good, but it's probably not excellent. It's not elite. And his striking is atrocious. But when you look at that Peter Barrett fight, I mean, he got beat up and he never stopped. He never stopped coming forward, never stopped throwing. He actually outlanded Peter Barrett on both significant strikes and total strikes. And when the third round came and he needed to finish, he wasn't out there trying to hit body lock takedowns and get top control. Yamanari rolled and gave up top position for the heel hook. Like that's what you want when you're betting on a guy. That's smart fight IQ. Now and if you look at the improvement he's made since the Contender Series, and now it's a pretty significant improvement. Now he's still only 21 years old. You have to think he just took 6 months off. He has probably more opportunities than he's ever had in his whole entire career for training. He's got more money, so he's probably training harder. Momentum's on his side, and I think he's just really good at capitalizing on when guys can put themselves in bad spots, and that's what Peterson does. So I'm gonna pick Cooper to capitalize. Also, Peterson's like 2 years off and just missed weight, so it's not really great.
I'm glad that you added that last little caveat there, because I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't actually say that Peterson did miss weight. He was the only one to miss weight here by 3 pounds, or I'd say 2.5 pounds if you give him the extra pound leeway. But yeah, not a good look. It didn't seem like he was completely sucked out or drained or anything like that. Like, we've definitely seen much worse scenarios in the past couple of weigh-ins where we've seen people just struggling to even make it to those scales. But Steven Peterson, it seemed like he made a conscious decision to not bother cutting that extra 2.5 pounds, and it might help him out here, especially with having to deal with the potential grappling onslaught that he's going to have to deal with here with Chase Hooper. But I do like me some Peterson here, as I believe Gugabe and Scrap does as well. But yeah, let's see how it pans out and see if Chase Hooper can truly go out there and start to improve and showcase that he deserves to be in the UFC. All right, let's move on to the next fight. Speaking of guys that deserve to be in the UFC, Terrence McKinney makes a short notice appearance here. He just fought last Friday on LFA headlining, and he actually went out there and got a quick finish. I believe it was just 1 minute and 13 seconds it took for him to go out there and win by KO. And now he draws Matt Frevola. Matt Frevola, probably one of the most cursed guys in this COVID-19 situation, having so many different circumstances, most recently being the Otman Azatar thing. You go from fighting the Otman Azatar 1-round KO guy to Arman Sarukian, poor Matt Frevola there having to take that short notice matchup. Gugabe, I'll actually let you kick this one off. How are you feeling about this fight between Matt Frevola and the short notice Terrence McKinney? You are muted if you're trying to talk. There we go.
Yeah. All right. McKinney should come out crazy, throw rabies, or gas after a round. But yeah, I'd personally wait for Frevola to live bet him, because McKinney could just kind of maim him. You have that kind of Hernandez Darius stupid result kind of thing. It's very possible, because since Frevola, he starts quick, but he seems fragile early on. Like Ray's knocked him out pretty fucking hard. McKinney plus 200 into the live bet after round's probably the best spot here. And McKinney could just kill him. You never know. But yeah, I'm really skeptical he's going to win for a 15-minute decision against Frevola.
This fight, I think it's going to be fireworks, to be honest. I don't think we've seen Mr. McKinney go to a decision at all in his career. He's only been to a third round once in his career. He's either getting the finish or getting finished. Most notably, people will know him for getting flying knee knocked out by Sean Woodson on the 2019 Contender Series season. And that was probably the last we've seen him up until this point. He did lose to Derek Minner on the regional scene right after that, but has put together 2 solid victories to notch his spot in the UFC. So you got to believe the UFC has had their eye on him for a minute and just been waiting for the right opportunity to bring him in, because he's an exciting fighter. He does have a bit of a college wrestling background, but I don't think it's anything significant that we really need to worry about here. Frevola has a decent wrestling background of his own, but I think both these guys are going to chuck leather at each other, and I do believe that the line is a little bit too wide. I ultimately still will be going with Frevola to win this probably by knockout, but the spots that I like are the fight doesn't go to decision. I know it's a little bit chalky at -225, but I do think that these guys are going to be throwing haymakers pretty much for the entirety of this fight. If you have have access to the under 2.5 at minus 165, that's even a better spot. Obviously, not as chalky as the fight doesn't go to decision. And if you're feeling a little risky, a little ballsy, that under 1.5 at plus 110, not too bad considering the type of performances these guys are capable of, especially considering that they're pretty much must-see TV at all times because they go out there, get the finish, or get finished, or get the finish themselves. Scott, how are you feeling about this matchup? And do you think that short Norris McKinney has the opportunity to go out there and spring the upset like Kamala Kirk just did this past weekend against Makwan Amerikani?
Yeah, no, I like Frevola here. I mean, McKinney is just too boom or bust. It's very possible he just comes out and wins in the first round. It's a very real win condition, especially considering Frevola is potentially chinny stuff. But yeah, Frevola is just very gritty, and I just expect as the rounds go on, McKinney to get slower and slower, and his whole game just start to fall apart. And from there, Frevola will likely finish.
Yeah, at least this fight should bring the entertainment aspect of it, right? Like I personally, I don't give a fuck about it. Like it's probably the second fight that I don't give a fuck about the most on this card outside of the Vendramini and Ziam fight. But at least it should deliver in terms of entertainment here. Scrap, how are you feeling about this particular matchup?
Yeah, don't have too much to add. I think you guys pretty much hit it on the head. It's going to be a car crash, and most likely McKinney early or Frevola late. Yeah, look to live bet Frevola if he makes it out of the first round, and obviously probably a solid chance McKinney starts to fall apart, especially if Frevola gets his grappling going. Yeah, and that under, not a bad spot as well.
All right. Let's keep things moving along. We got Pani Kianzad going up against Alexis Davis. In terms of odds, we got minus 195 for Pani and plus 180 for Alexis Davis. Excuse me. I'll kick this breakdown off for you guys. It's pretty much a similar fight for both women in terms to what their last fight was, right? With Alexis Davis, she went out there and outgrinded Sabina Mazo, predominantly a striker, likes to kick a lot, and Alexis Davis did a really good job in terms of staying in her face, eventually dragging the fight to the ground and grinding her out there. And then for Pani Kianzad, dealing with Sijara Eubanks, who had a grapple-heavy approach in that fight, was very successful with it in the first round, and then in the second and third rounds, we saw Pani Kianzad work behind that jab and her striking, and was able to keep the fight vertical and able to get the judges' scorecards for at least rounds 2 and 3. I feel like we'll see a similar fight here from the Pani Kianzad side. I think that there might be a round that she ends up giving up just from a takedown and just not able to get back up from the much bigger Alexis Davis. And let's not forget, Davis, used to fight at 135 pounds. Sijara Eubanks used to fight at at the lower weight class as well, 125 pounds. And you're definitely getting a bigger Alexis Davis here. But the issue with Davis is she's just a little bit too slow, and I think that Kianzad will be able to capitalize on that. With Sabina Mazo, you're getting somebody that was a kick-heavy fighter. With Pani Kianzad, I feel like you're getting more of a, she is a kickboxer and she is an all-around striker, don't get me wrong, but I feel like the most or the best of her abilities come from her hands, and I feel like that should keep her safe in terms of not getting taken down. Work behind that jab, stay on the outside, and be sure that she's just, not overextending on punches and giving up takedowns here. But I think that this looks like Kianzad going out there and grinding this fight out from an outpointing standpoint. So Kianzad by decision, the spot that I'm looking at is minus 135. You always want to get at least some plus money if you're thinking that you're going to get a solid value, especially on Kianzad. But yeah, I'm liking Kianzad, but her straight line at minus 195, I'm not too trustworthy of that, right? Like Alexis Davis could easily pull off 2 takedowns in this fight and win it just off of takedowns alone, right? And shout out to Gagabe getting his beautiful mug on the stream for us here. I feel like he felt the heat from the chat there to finally get on. So shout out to my guy Gagabe for doing that. Scott, how are you feeling about Alexis Davis and Pani Kianzad in the spot?
Yeah, it's a tough fight to call. Kianzad showed obvious grappling holes in her game. Eubanks dominated for about 6 minutes, and Kohei even had glimpses of success in grappling her as well. Offensively, Kianzad's pretty horrific at grappling as well. But she's shown pretty good striking. It's not elite, but I mean, she lands at 5.14 significant strikes per minute. She landed over 90 significant strikes in all 3 of her last fights, which is just impressive volume. And the hands are pretty sharp, and she's also pretty big for the division. So it seems like they're landing with a lot of power. Davis has clear win condition with jiu-jitsu black belt, decent wrestling. However, she just, like you said, she's slow. She hasn't really shown the ability to just be able to get inside on good strikers and hit takedowns. On the feet, I think Davis is the more versatile striker, but she just lands at the volume difference is going to be significant. So I don't think that's going to really matter. So Kianzad's my pick.
All right. Scrap, how are you feeling about this one? You going with the dog to grind this one out, or do you think that Pani keeps this fight vertical and outboxes Alexis Davis over 15 minutes?
Yeah, I think Penny's the rightful favorite, but it's a bit wide. Like minus 200-ish in women's MMA for someone who's shown that she can be taken down and held down. Yeah, it doesn't really interest me at all. So I'm on Davis, mix of like money line and decision. I do expect Penny to kind of box her up a bit on the feet, but Davis is tough. She'll keep pushing forward. She knows, her path. A bit concerning. She hasn't really shown much kind of takedown ability apart from catching kicks and like body locks. Doesn't have much of like a double leg or single leg game. So yeah, it's more of like a bet out of principle. Anytime there's like a women's MMA dog like plus 150 or better with grappling upside, it's kind of like an automatic bet for me. So maybe this one loses, but like long term, I think it's just a good angle.
Yeah, Gugabe, I'm definitely going to be kicking myself if I'm not betting Alexis Davis in this spot and she goes out there and springs the victory like she did against Sabina Mazo. That's the spot that I was on last time. I'm passing on it this time, but I could definitely see the upside for her being the dog in the spot. Do you think she has the chops to go out there and squeak this decision out, grinding it out, or even possibly fighting a decision here against Kianzad? Or a submission, I should say.
I think it's definitely a possibility. Personally, I just feel like Davis is too reliant on kick catches to really, if Kianzad just minds her P's and Q's, she should be fine. And I think Kianzad is smarter than Sabina Mazo because Sabina Mazo just fucking spams everything she can possibly can at all times. So yeah, and Sabina Mazo she should have lost the decision. She was on her way to lose the decision against Yoda in the fight before that, pretty clearly.
Or Justine Kish, actually.
Oh, Kish, sorry. I always get those two confused for some reason. Same person. So consequentially, it's just kind of like I can see the angles on Davis. She could get top control, but I just don't really see how she consistently gets there. But it's quite very possible you just see her throwing a bunch of kicks and getting caught, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I guess I just don't really have any strong opinions here.
All right. Let's move on to the next fight here. We got probably the fight that I'm looking forward to the most. This is an MMA nerds dream matchup, I think, at least for two rising prospects. We got Hakeem Dawodu going up against Movsar Evloev. We got minus 220-ish on Evloev and plus 200-ish on Hakeem Dawodu. I'll actually let Mr. Scott Shelvok take us home or start this one off for us. How are you feeling about this matchup?
I hate going against Canadian, but I'm picking Evloev here. I think he has a very clear path to victory with his takedowns. He lands 2.75 takedowns per 15 minutes while fighting excellent grapplers like Barzola, Grundy, and Lentz, where Dawodu, on the other hand, has been taken down 4 times in the last 5 fights versus a much lower level of competition. Dawodu obviously should have the advantage on the feet. He's the better striker. However, I do worry that when he fights grapplers, his volume seems to drop. The last fight, he only landed 69 strikes, and Evloev lands 4.76 strikes per minute. So if the takedown threat drops Dawodu's volume, then it seems like a real possibility to me that Evloev can actually just win a striking contest here. And for that, he has to be a pretty massive favorite.
Yeah, when this matchup was announced, I was split down the middle. I love the prospect that Movsar Evloev is. He's probably my favorite prospect in the UFC. But Hakeem Dawodu is probably our best chance at somebody to crack the top 10 as a Canadian. But I think he's going to end up taking an L here, but I'll get into that a little bit later. Scrap, how are you feeling about this matchup? Do you think there's any value on the Muay Thai kickboxer Hakeem Dawodu, or do you like the Russian Movsar Evloev?
I think there's a little bit of value on Dawodu, but I'm probably not going to be interested in betting it before the fight just because historically he's such a slow starter, and I think there's a pretty good chance you get a better line after the first round. Like Scott made a good point. If Evloev can kind of start mixing in his takedowns, then historically that's kind of been a good way to make Dawodu kind of go into his shell and the output dries up. But that being said, Evloev, I don't think actually has the best top control. His wrestling's solid. He gets to his takedowns, but he's quite small for 145, and Dawodu's shown a pretty good get up game. So I don't actually think he's going to be able to hold Dawodu down for extended periods throughout this fight. So I got a little bit of a Dawodu decision, which is plus 450, just small, but I'll probably be looking to live bet him if he doesn't look like he's still asleep after round 1.
I like it. Gugabe, it's not often that you see a fighter come into the UFC and go up a weight class, but Evloev has truly been, very comfortable at 145 pounds, obviously going undefeated in the UFC now. But this has got to be his stiffest competition to date in the UFC with Hakeem Dawodu. How do you see this fight going down?
I feel like it will be close, but Evloev will win it. And there'll just be all these ones that was just all right, Dawodu was probably valued, but Evloev just consistently grinds out a 29-28. Sometimes you get these fights where it's just 95% chance of being a close win. Which is just from a betting point of view, for annoying because it's just what can you do? Yeah, it's grappling edge. Dawodu's slow starting is always a concern to me. Like, I mean, in the past, I've always felt he's a guy who lie better after round because, like, he just takes his time sorting himself out. But Evloev starts very slow as well. Like, again, he had issues with Grundy in the first round, that kind of stuff. Evloev's good. I feel like Dawodu should eventually get picked up by, his grappling hold should fuck him eventually. But I'm personally, I can't see much point. I can't see much interest in betting this one. Like, I feel like Dawodu's good enough for his speciality, and Evloev can be a bit lower enthusiasm and initiative, so I could get fucked on that front, but should be fine, I guess.
Yeah, this should definitely be a fun fight. We've definitely seen an improvement in the striking game of Evloev since coming into the UFC. Obviously, in the Russian promotions that he was fighting for, he did heavily rely on his grappling and some striking, of course. Working over there at Tiger Muay Thai at times, there are crazy sparring videos of him and Piotr Jan on YouTube that you guys can go and check out. So you can definitely see that he's making the improvements there. But it's definitely going to be heavily reliant on him getting takedowns here. Being the guy that shoots the output here, especially because Hakeem Dawodu, I feel, is definitely very low output. He seems like he's a little bit calculated in his approach, looking for his openings to go out there and throw his combinations and stuff. But I do think that Evloev ultimately will kind of see those ones come in, change levels, get the takedowns, and start grinding this fight out. You got to be stupid to not want to get your wrestling going in this situation, especially when you have the wrestling prowess that Evloev does have. I will say I'm not the most impressed with Evloev's ability to keep his opponents down, but his cardio is good enough that he'll be able to continuously take his opponents down and give them trouble up against the cage if that's where the fight ends up taking place. But I do like Evloev as well. I do think it'll play out much closer than the odds indicate, just as Gugabe said, but it feels like one of those spots that it's probably going to be Evloev by decision. Both guys, not much likelihood for a finish. So I'd rather be going with Evloev by decision, which I think is currently around even money. I think that's a solid spot. I think they're getting some decent value right there. All right, let's move on to the next spot here. We got Lauren Murphy going up against Joanne Calderwood. In terms of odds, the odds are starting to widen a little bit in Joanne Calderwood's favor. She's roughly around minus 150. We got plus 120 on Lauren Murphy. And Scrap, I'll actually let you kick this one off. How are you feeling about this flyweight women's matchup?
Yeah, I like Murphy here. I think she's just got that style that can give Jojo problems. Like she'll consistently come forward. She'll try to push Jojo on the back foot, which has historically made her like kicking game a lot more ineffective. Jojo, like her numbers look good, her stats, but like it's a lot of like leg kicks and teeps and stuff that don't actually impress the judges. So it looks a lot different to the eye than it does on the stat sheet. I just think Murphy's going to be able to make this like a classic Lauren Murphy fight, just ugly as fuck. Just come forward, throwing 1-2s, looking for the clinch. I think she's probably a bit stronger, maybe have a bit of like a physical edge and just be able to grind Jojo in the clinch. I think it'll play out like pretty close. So I think there's a little bit of value on Murphy here. I'm pretty biased towards Murphy though. I like her game for women's MMA. She just will consistently make it ugly, and she's effective at that. So yeah, she's the side for me.
All right. Gugabe, how are you feeling about this match? I'm seeing different takes on either side here. How are you feeling about this one?
I'm just going to say, I'm actually wearing Lauren Murphy match. I'm probably the only person in the world to have purchased Lauren Murphy match.
No way.
My biggest win ever at the time was Lauren Murphy submission last fight. I think I made like 25K on that. So I was I might as well pay $50 for a t-shirt. So, I'm supporting Lauren Murphy's. There you go. It's got the signature.
Oh, wow.
Some random cancer collaboration or something. So, Lauren Murphy, I love her. She's a great fighter. But personally, weird fight. Because if Calderwood's standing, she should just be out voluming her, and Murphy will be struggling because she'll just get outworked. But Calderwood's bottom game is a concern. Like, she'll probably get stuck if she gets taken down. I actually like Murphy plus 100s. Like, early in the week, I took some, and now I look like an idiot. So I've just kind of gone, all right. I'll just I'll leave my half unit on Murphy plus 100 and hope she gets some takedowns. It's just a weird fight because I feel like both could dominate because you could see Calderwood just getting the stand up for ages and winning cleanly. And also, like, if Murphy just gets 2 takedowns, that could be the fight easily. And I'm hoping for another Murphy sub because you got a cheer Murphy sub. Like, plus 2,000 in that spot against Shakurova was insane.
Absolutely insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, this one was one I've been kind of going back and forth all week. Pre-tape, I was leaning Lauren Murphy as well. I thought that her physicality and some of the improvements that she's been making since she moved down to Houston and started training with the striking coach of Derek Lewis, I believe his name is Bob Perez. Solid coach. Obviously, we've definitely been seeing improvements from her. But that Andrea Lee fight, I think that's what it's going to play out similar to. If you guys remember the Andrea Lee fight, I thought Lee kind of got robbed in that fight, but I'm a little bit biased as I did have her in a parlay at that spot. But I thought that was a great fight for her to go out there and outstrike Lauren Murphy, which is exactly what she did. She was quicker to the punch. She had better combinations. She had great movement. It just came down to the last, minute, 45 seconds where Lauren Murphy was able to secure a takedown and then pretty much get the judges to score those rounds for her. That's what I think it pretty much came down to. Then after that, Lauren Murphy gets two very favorable fights. Like, let's just say Roxanne Modafferi. I was kind of surprised that the odds were as close as they were in that fight. And then obviously the short notice Lilia Shakarova, which made our guy Gugabe super rich. Good fight for her. Again, super short notice as well of an opponent that she's going up against. But with Joanne Calderwood here, I don't know what it is about the public, but she always seems to get this love that she's made out to be this fighter that I don't think she's as good as the public perceives her to be, but I do think that she has the advantages in this fight to at least go out there and replicate what Andrea Lee was able to do in the first 4 or so minutes in most of their, in at least 2 of their 3 rounds when they fought. And I think that she'll land the better strikes. So she'll be quicker to the punch. She'll land the better combinations. She'll be more active on the feet. And I think we'll see Lauren Murphy actually swing at air a lot in this fight, which should make Lauren Murphy look even better. Not to mention, Lauren Murphy does not wear damage that well. I think that judges will definitely have a little bit of an influence just off of seeing that as well. And hopefully Joanne Calderwood is ready for that takedown. That's probably coming in the last minute of the round. And if she's able to stuff those, she should be able to win some rounds here. But I'm not saying this with much confidence or much vigor, as I do believe that Calderwood could potentially, get taken down. She could get out muscled up against the cage. I do believe that Lauren Murphy will be the stronger fighter in this situation, and that could cause some problems for Joanne Calderwood, who seemed to struggle ever so slightly against Jessica I in those cage clinch positions as well. But I ultimately will pick Calderwood to win this fight by decision, just outworking, landing the better shots, and then obviously landing more damage in the striking realm. Scott, bring us home with this breakdown. How are you feeling about Joanne Calderwood and Lauren Murphy?
Yeah, I got Calderwood here. She's just gonna the volume's gonna be such a significant factor. I mean, she lands 85 or more strikes in 7. So in 7 of her 8 fights that have gone past the first round, she's landed 85 or more, 100 strikes or more in 5 of those, and she topped out at 148 versus Jessica I. And we look at Lauren Murphy, she's never surpassed 100 significant strikes, and she only lands 3.8 significant strikes per minute. So the volume is going to be so big. Obviously, the takedown's a big thing here, but JoJo's been improving her wrestling. Surprisingly enough, she landed 8 takedowns in her last 5 fights, which is pretty shocking. And Murphy only lands about 1.18 takedowns per 15 minutes, and in her last 5, she only controlled about 1.25 minutes per takedown. So it's not obviously JoJo spends a lot of time on her back, but I don't think she's gonna. I just don't see Lauren Murphy chain wrestling her and getting I just don't see a lot of top control here. So I mean, the strength could be a big deal in the clinch, but I really think Calderwood's is going to run with this pretty easily.
All right, it seems like the panel is split here, but it is a close fight, so you can't blame the fellas. All right, let's move on to the next fight. This is the first of 3 rematches that we have on the card. We got Eric Anders going up against Darren Stewart. If you guys remember, the last time they fought, it was a couple months ago. Eric Anders throws everything in the kitchen sink at Darren Stewart, and unfortunately, an illegal knee after that as well. And that fight gets changed to a no contest, or gets graded as a no contest. And now they're running it back once again. Gugabe, I'll let you kick this one off. Do you think that fight shows us all we need to know, right? We had Eric Anders comes in at plus 155 in the first fight. Now he's a minus 155 favorite. How are you feeling about this matchup the second time around?
My main thing about the first fight is I do not understand how it wasn't disqualification. What was the logic for making it no contest? He was down, clearly. Anders had 20 seconds to decide what he was doing. Seriously, you came off the Yarn fight the week before where it was no contest, and then that one was disqualification. I think that was a lot more intense. Yarn, at least Sterling was getting up. It was kind of this spot and transition. Well, Anders has just been pounding the fuck out of him, and then lands this stupid knee. And it's it should have been disqualification, because I was annoyed because I had the ITD last time plus 200, which is flipped back to minus money now, which is it makes sense because I feel the last time they were just these guys don't finish many people, but it's 2 beefed up middleweights. We're just going to fucking smack into each other in the middle of the cage. Stewart's a big enough hitter. I don't think you should be playing Anders much past minus 150. Anders, history of being an idiot, should probably be a more durable guy. But again, if either of these guys just clip the other one and that's it, that would not shock me. But yeah, I'll probably be looking for a live bet on Stewart after round here. I feel like Anders is a bit better starter, and I've got some ends KO. Ends KO is still plus 130. I'm happy with that. Like, I'm hoping that since it's a rematch, they might come out a bit harder because they have this sort of dynamic go psychologically. And if Anders is going to get in Stewart's face, either he's going to get hit very, very hard by Stewart, or he's going to hurt Stewart. And I'm happy to take ends KO plus 130 for that.
Interesting. I'm seeing a different approach here. I think this fight actually might get dragged on a little bit more. Another caveat about this fight compared to the last one. Last one was at 185 pounds. They're doing this at 205. I believe, just due to the short notice of it, considering that they're just making it a rematch. But what kind of improvements can we truly say that we saw Mr. Eric Anders make now that he's at fight ready, right? It seemed like he took that grapple, that clinch approach a little bit when he got dinged by a nice shot by Darren Stewart earlier in the fight. But after that, he goes out there, clinches him up against the cage, slows the pace down, unloads some combinations whenever they were breaking, and landed a perfect combination to hurt Darren Stewart, and then follow up with some punches again, like I said, through everything and the kitchen sink at him, and unfortunately as well as an illegal knee. But I feel like this might be one of those situations where we see Anders just try to be the bigger, more muscular guy, right? He's obviously the guy that's fought at 205 pounds before. He's going to be the bigger guy in this fight, and I think he feels like he can go out there and just be, the stronger guy. Just push him up against the cage and control Darren Stewart. Darren Stewart even slows down himself too. So this could be a sloppy motherfucking fight. I have no confidence on either side. I don't believe that just because Anders had so much success in that first fight that he's automatically going to win the second fight. There's a reason we always put into our heads, out of 10 times, how many times is Eric Anders going to win? And this is our opportunity to see what the second time is going to look like. It could have as easily been Darren Stewart that lands that big bomb and had Eric Anders on wobbly legs, right? So it could have gone either way. Very close fight, in my opinion. I am ultimately going to go with Anders. I think he takes a slow, safe approach, grinds up against him, pushes him up against the cage, maybe lands a takedown or two, but just grinds this one out and takes home a decision victory. But close fight. I think it's highly volatile. Scott, how do you feel about this fight?
I like Anders here. I think you mentioned one of the big points is that he's with fight ready now. They both have pretty underwhelming careers based on at least what we expected out of them. So the fact that Anders at 34 is still going out and he's training with new camps, that means a lot to me. He's bigger than him. Anders is bigger than him. He's got more power. He's got a better clinch game. He's got better wrestling. I think he's the worst boxer, but with the power, I don't know if that matters. If Stewart's path to victory is to go out there and outbox him without getting taken down or clocked, I don't like that path to victory. So I'm going to pick Anders.
All right, Scott, bring us home. How are you feeling about this one? Do you think that Darren Stewart reverses the fortunes of the last fight, or do you think that we see Eric Anders have success and get the victory this time?
Yeah, I think line's probably a bit about right. Maybe a little bit of value on Anders. Like Scott said, I don't usually read like massively into camp changes, but I think the difference between with whatever Anders was doing beforehand, where he would just come out and like I had no idea what the guy was trying to do. He'd just kind of walk forward and fucking seem to have no process whatsoever to his game. Then going to fight ready, obviously that's a massive difference. Having like a concise game plan, you can see he's actually going out there and trying to do specific things. So I think that alone is just like a massive upgrade for him and will allow him to kind of like leverage his physical tools. I think it's about right. I like that ends by KO because I think, they could either go in there like the first fight and swing and it's two big guys who hit pretty hard, but neither is particularly great defensively. And then both have shown that they might gas out. So I think in the third round, whatever, if they're tired, one gets on top of the other. I think a finish is pretty live. But money line probably about right. Gun to my head, bet Anders. But I'd probably favor the ends by KO.
There we go. And that brings us to our prelim headliner now. A banger of a fight, probably the fight that I'm looking forward to second most, right under Hakeem Dawodu and Movsar Evloev. We got a banger between Drew Dober and Brad Riddell. Riddell was slow to get to the scales. I believe he was the second last guy to hit the scales. Didn't look so confident when he actually stepped on the scale, but he did end up making the lightweight limit, and he was able to, again, make the weight. And in terms of odds, we're talking about Drew Dober coming in at minus 140, plus 120-ish for Brad Riddell. I'll kick the breakdowns off for this one. I do like Drew Dober here. I do think he lands the more impactful shots. I do think he's a great kickboxer. It feels like a Muay Thai versus American kickboxing type of fight here, and we'll see which one actually ends up reigning supreme. I'm going to end up going on the Drew Dober side of things. Now, I do think that Brad Riddell is a little bit higher in terms of the output, and I'm sure Scott will dribble us with the numbers there once we actually get to him. But I do think that Riddell will have the advantage in that aspect. But I think that this is a large step up from what Brad Riddell has been facing in the past, right? Going from Jamie Malarkey and Alex De Silva to Drew Dober, I think is a pretty significant step up in competition. So we'll truly get to see what Brad Riddell is made of here. But I do think that the cardio advantage goes to Drew Dober. I think if anybody wrestles or ends up in the clinch position, is probably going to be because Drew Dober initiates those sequences, and I think he will be successful in going that path if that's what he chooses to do. But even if this remains one of those fights where it's a stand-up battle, I think Drew Dober gets the better of the exchanges. Again, he might be beat on the volume ever so slightly, but I think that he'll land the more impactful and damaging shots, and that's what the judges will end up scoring. Now, the last thing I'll say about this fight, the under 2.5 is at plus 150, and if this was like lock of the night 2020, I'd probably make this a dog of the night play for myself, as I truly believe I love taking advantage of those spots when we have two solid strikers who have good power in their hands, and we expect the fight to play out for 50 minutes in the striking realm. More often than not, I'll try to take advantage of that plus money, but I feel like it's a trap spot, so I'm going to maybe staying away from that. I'll ultimately be taking Dober to win this fight via decision, but this one's going to be a firecracker, man. This one's going to be a really fun fight that I can't wait to see play out, but I will go with the American and Drew Dober to win this fight via decision. Scott, drop those numbers on us and then eventually tell us who you actually think is going to win this fight.
Yeah, I don't know the exact numbers I wrote down. They both land
Damn it, Scott.
Roughly 4.3. Both around 4.3 significant strikes per minute. So I actually don't think the volume would be a big difference here. It's a tough fight to call. Riddell is obviously more credentialed with his kickboxing record, but I think they're pretty even on the feet. Like I said, volume will be very similar. I actually think Dober has a slight power advantage. But yeah, I couldn't really figure out who I wanted to go with here. So I guess like the X factor is that Dober could potentially wrestle. He probably has the better grappling, so I would lean him that way. But it's a very even fight.
All right. Scrap, how are you feeling about this pretty competitive matchup that we got between Dober and Riddell?
Yeah, full disclosure, I'm like massively biased towards any CKB guys, just being from the same scene in this part of the world. But I do like Brad here. Like I think it's like a pick 'em fight, or maybe even a slight lean to Brad. Agree with Scott. I do think Dober probably has like the harder one punch like power. For me, it's just like the depth of Brad's striking game. Dober's a really good pressure fighter, but that's kind of all he's shown that he's able to do on the feet. And I don't think he's just going to be able to walk Brad down and hit him. Like Brad's got a lot of depth to his striking game. He's world-class kickboxer. He's been in there with like the best stand-up guys in the world, trains with some of the best guys in the world all the time. So I think Brad can, play the counter, get his own pressure game going. I wouldn't be surprised if Brad is actually the one looking to initiate a bit of wrestling here. I don't think he's going to have like massive success. I'm not expecting him to go out there and like grapple fuck Drew Dober or anything like that. But he has been like doing a lot of wrestling, so I wouldn't be surprised if he just mixes it in just to give Dober something else to think about. But yeah, for me, it's just going to be like the depth and the like nuance of Brad's striking game. I think will get him a decision here.
I love that nobody's touched on the Islam Makhachev fight because it obviously has no bearing on how this fight is going to go. But Gugabe, we did see a solid stretch of wins for Drew Dober last time around. Polo Reyes knocked him out in the first round. Nasrat Haqparast pulls off a big upset there, knocks him out in the first round. And then Alexander Hernandez finishes him in the second round. I'm giving him a mulligan for the Makhachev fight because pretty much everybody deserves one against Makhachev. How do you feel about Dober in this matchup going up against another striker with Brad Riddell? And do you think he gets his hand raised?
Dober's a bit weird because I've been quite big on the Dober surge. I took him against Hernandez because Hernandez sucks. Reyes can't take a punch anymore. And I had him against Nasrat plus 250, but I don't think that fight went long enough to really mean anything. Dober clocking him inside a minute was always a possibility, but I'm not going to do victory laps and it's a first minute KO, who cares? I think the main issue here is going to be that Dober starts a lot harder and quicker than Riddell. So if I was going to bet Riddell, I'd probably try to get on him again a bit later because I think probably an issue where Dober will probably come out or kick down the door a lot quicker. And Dober hits hard. He's very ferocious as hell, and you never know if he can just get in Riddell's face and get the early KO. But I think Riddell should pull away down the stretch. I like the ends KO. I know it's a trap spot where they land 500 strikes. It's like Barboza, Burgos or something like that. Where they're going to land 5,000 strikes each, but it's not going to come to a very last minute. It's you kind of have to play the under there because you're getting that many lands from two power punches, but also Dober historically very durable. Riddell's never been hurt in kickboxing, but I think they're both definitely premier hitters and Riddell's power is getting a bit is probably getting a bit too little credit, just because like against Sylvie probably finishes him without that weird judge deciding to jump in there and calling it an eye poke when it wasn't.
Yeah.
And Malarkey taking one of the greatest beatings in UFC history. But like I was actually sitting behind Malarkey's family during that fight, and they were losing their shit when he almost took him out. Like yeah, that was incredible. That the image of him punching him on his knees is just like one of the most. I think that should be like in the UFC highlight reel where he just fucking goes back.
They should have
obviously
a
didn't need to. He was 126, but that's just like one of the big moments. That's just like one of my favorite like moments in UFC history, just in terms of just pure. I don't know what is this.
Yeah, if you guys haven't seen Malarkey versus Riddell, please go watch that fight. Absolutely amazing fight, debut for both guys. But yeah, go ahead, Gugaba. You can finish your thought.
Third round of that fight is one of the best of all time. First two rounds are pretty good, then third round just goes insane because like Malarkey kind of meme, it just hurts him out of nowhere. Then like Riddell just takes it personally. Yeah, that was a great moment. But otherwise, I like the under here. I'm very aware I'm going to be screaming at the TV, being like, for fuck's sake, you guys just landed 500 kill shots. Why is nobody dead? But you also kind of have to play a plus money over when you're going to get 200 kill. You're going to get 200 massive shots, if you get what I mean. I guess can see your logic.
In terms of a side, you're picking Riddell or Dober here?
I like Riddell plus money, but I feel like the live entry is probably the better spot just because I feel like Dober starts quicker. So yeah, it's a good chance you see. I think Dober picks up the early lead, then Riddell winds it back. So like, why pre-bet? And also gives you a chance to see if Dober's going to wrestle or not. But like, I'm very curious to see what Dober's game plan's going to be. If Dober decides to try clinch fucking or wrestling, it's like, all right, that's what we're doing now. But on the other hand, if he just gives him a striking match, I think Dober starts harder, and then probably Riddell has to pull back from around down.
All right. I'm very much looking forward to that fight, and hopefully it's a barn burner and not Drew Dober just trying to hump the leg of Brad Riddell for 15 minutes. All right, that wraps up the prelim portion. I do want to remind you guys, please do hit that like, hit that subscribe, and obviously go follow our guys that we have on the panel this week. The links to the Twitter channels are in the description below, so you don't even have to go out there and search. You don't even have to type in anything. Just hit that link and hit that follow, and I promise you guys will be very thankful because these guys are very, very sharp and they know exactly what the hell they're talking about. All right, we're pretty much on to the main card here, and we got pretty chalky Jamal Hill at minus 300 at certain sites. Minus 265 is the best line that I currently see. We got plus 245 on Paul Craig. I'm actually going to let Scott kick this one off. Do you think that Hill is worthy of that minus 300 line, or do you think the Bear Jew can pull one more out of his ass?
I'm picking Hill, but I think it's a bit steep. You know, he's there's a lot to like about him. He's a huge 205er, 79-inch reach, southpaw, lands 7.9 significant strikes per minute in his last 4, and that includes that huge, impressive KO over OSP. However, I think there's concerns. You know, he's 30 years old and only been fighting about 3 years, and he's also was taken down 6 times by Stosic. Probably saying that not wrong. That's concerning. Unfortunately, when you look over at Paul Craig, there's nothing but concerns. I mean, he's got a sneaky BJJ game, but it's not elite. And besides that, there's really not a whole lot of substance to his game. His 4-fight unbeaten streak is against old man Shogun twice, and 2 real just not great fighters. And if we ignore those 2 last-second submissions, he would be 0-6 right now against the 6 best guys he's ever fought. So, and I also think he lost to Shogun the first time too. So there's just not much to go off, not much to like about him. So you have to pick Hill to win, but I do think that they're due to the takedowns that Stosic hit, there is a pretty obvious path to victory for Craig, so that makes me worried about a negative 300 line. For sure. Scott hit the nail on the head in terms of that Jamal Hill is still kind of green, right? Like 3 years into his MMA career, but he shows a lot of promise. I did like what we saw in the OSP fight, his ability to get back to his feet over and over again against Darko Stosic, even though he got taken down 6 times in that fight. But I feel like the kid has a bright future, but he really needs to get it going now. Luckily for him, he's in a very thin light heavyweight division, so he can make a name for himself pretty quickly. Scrap, are you on that Jamal Hill side, or do you think the Bear Jew can pull off another submission here?
Yeah, no, I think Jamal Hill probably should wipe him out. Paul Craig just is terrible. He's gotten like a little bit more confidence in his stand-up, but he's kind of just, you can see him, he's like, oh, I can just stay on the outside and just kick really hard, but anytime someone gets into boxing range, his head just shoots straight up. He backpedals in a straight line into the cage. I think Jamal Hill's range and just being a southpaw is going to be a little bit too much for him. I think he's just going to touch Craig over and over with that left hand. He's probably going to knock him out Craig's takedowns are terrible. I don't really see that happening for him. It could, just because they're big 205-pound guys. So maybe sloppy exchange. He managed to get Hill down as Hill tries to get up. He takes his back or something. But yeah, I think that's really his only path unless he somehow randomly boops him on the feet. So I'd say like Jamal Hill at the current line is pretty fair. I'd pick Jamal Hill by knockout probably within the first 2 rounds.
I like it. Gugabe, how are you feeling about Jamal Hill here? Do you think he goes out there and does pretty much what the public expects him to do?
I think Craig's always underrated. Like, I made quite a bit of Craig KO last time, which was a good spot. It was nice he actually went for TKO. I got the opposite thing against Vinicius Maia, where he had him knocked out when he went for the fucking rear naked choke. Because it was a flip from like plus 900 to plus 150, and it was like really annoying because like Maia could have been waived. Craig's actually been wrestling. He's actually like wrestling like in terms of like enthusiastically, and like, yeah, I think there's probably value on him at this price. I think Hill people are getting a bit, because again, how good is Hill's bottom game? Like, we don't know. So it's like, if Craig puts him on his back, what's going to happen? I can't see how you play minus 300 with that kind of thing hanging over his head. Like, possibly Hill's fine off his back, but you've really got this. It's MMA. You've really got to be able to cover this guy gets grappled before you start playing minus 300, unless it's like an elite talent like what's the name? Closer Shields, in which point it doesn't matter whether they get grappled or not; they'll just knock them out. But Jamal Hill might not have this technique or heart of Closer Shields, and I don't see it. I think the over's kind of interesting as well. I think Craig's chin gets unfairly maligned. Like, he got whacked hard by Roundtree and Pedro, and the Menefield KO was a really weird situation where he like fell over and he got like fucking, he kind of fell over and got nuked. It wasn't like it was a standard striking situation. But like, I'm actually reasonably high on Hill normally because I think his sheer work rate's actually, it stands in quite good stead in light heavyweight, and it's just a weird matchup because like, I think Craig's probably the side, but it's a really bizarre matchup.
For sure. I'm hoping for some violence regardless. I think that this should be a fun fight to at least kick off the main card here and hopefully, entertain some of the casual viewers that we're going to be having. Guaranteed we're going to have a ton of casual viewers, especially with Nate Diaz on the card here. All right, let's move on to the next fight. We got... Actually, I didn't even give my take here on Jamal Hill and Paul Craig, so I'll actually give you guys that. I do like Jamal Hill here. I think minus 125 on the KO is accurately lined. I think he goes out there and kind of starches Paul Craig pretty easily here. I'm not super impressed with the wrestling game of Craig. If he did have some solid chops there, I wouldn't be as confident as I am in Jamal Hill in this spot, but I do think that we'll see Hill go out there and starch him. There is a little bit of a rivalry as well. We've seen the video of them chirping at each other, and obviously the Twitter exchanges that they've been having since the first time they were scheduled a couple months ago. But I do think that we'll see a solid highlight reel finish here from Jamal Hill, who I believe is improving on a fight-to-fight basis pretty I don't want to say exponentially because that just that just makes people believe that he's a superstar at this point in time, but he is improving pretty well from a fight-to-fight basis, and you got to believe he's been working his jiu-jitsu chops this entire training camp in case he does find himself off of his back. But I'm hoping that he doesn't need to utilize that at all and can go out there and start Paul Craig, as I believe most people expect him to do this weekend. All right, that brings us to our next fight. We do have Damian Maia going up against Bilal Muhammad, and I'm actually going to let Scrap Capper kick this one off. We got minus 215 on Bilal, plus 195 on Damian Maia. Are you going to take your balls out and trust the 40-plus-year-old Brazilian once again at plus money, as I did, unfortunately, last week with Francisco Trinaldo? How are you feeling about Damian Maia this weekend?
I think he's pretty live to, get the sub within the first 7 minutes, depending on, what pace that first 7 minutes occurs at. We've never really seen Bilal have to defensively grapple against anyone close to Maia's level, in the big cage, like, Bilal should be able to stay fairly elusive, but I mean, for that, Maia's going to do what he's going to do, so... Yeah, I like a bit of Maia sub, plus 450. No way you touch Bilal at the current line because there's a real good chance that Maia subs him early or backpacks him for a round and you get a better price after the first round and Maia gets tired and dies. So, yeah, I think, look to live bet Bilal, but also I think Maia sub is pretty live as well.
Yeah, I think Maia's getting a little bit of disrespect here. But Gugabi, are you giving any credence to Mr. Bilal Muhammad, who seems to be a fan favorite now? He has his own YouTube show. Remember the show? Obviously, he has a ton of heat coming off from his social media presence. And I definitely believe that has an effect on the betting line here. But do you actually believe he should be, worse than minus 200?
I think that, again, it's kind of a binary coin flip kind of question. If he can stop Maia's takedowns in round one, then Maia's fucked. Like, that's just how Maia's career is. But we haven't really, he hasn't really stopped takedowns from Mayboy since Rencontre ages ago. And Rencontre was on in like 5 days' notice and was just diving out of nowhere with no setup. I kind of like the ends inside the distance. I feel like Maia could just be done because, like, even like chin-wise, Maia's most recent fights are Ben Askren, not a knockout for it. He choked out Lyman Good in the minute. It's like, well, he didn't get punched. Burns killed him. And Tony Martin was a weird fight where, like, even Martin kind of dropped him in round 3. So, again, Muhammad brings a solid pace. I think it's quite possible it just gets very ugly towards the end of the fight where it's just Bilal just punching him a lot. And, like, Maia could always just up him in the first round. It's far from impossible. So, with that in mind, I like Maia pre-fight. Probably look to jump off after a round or so because if he hasn't got the sub, it's probably not going anywhere good from there, as a rule of thumb. And, like, honestly, even draw probably couldn't be too bad here because I could see a 10-8 either way. Like, if Muhammad just beats the fuck out of him in round 3, seems about right.
Yeah, I am favoring Damian Maia ever so slightly here, especially at the line that he's currently at. In terms of the thing that kind of surprised me a little bit was actually his betting line against Gilbert Burns. He was only a plus 120 dog going into that fight. And I understand that it was before Gilbert Burns became the Gilbert Burns that we know him to be right now. But he was on the path to becoming that Gilbert Burns that we, got the title shot, got that dominant victory over Tyron Woodley. But Damian Maia had some good spots against him too. You know what I mean? He got his back. He had very advantageous position. Excuse me, sorry. Yeah, he had a very advantageous position against the guy in Gilbert Burns, who's obviously a very good jiu-jitsu player himself. But I feel if Bilal Muhammad finds himself in that position, we don't know what's going to happen because Bilal has really not fought many, grapple-heavy fighters in the UFC. Like we said, Rencontre is probably the closest, but he came in on super short notice, so we don't really get a great look at what that fight would have looked like if Rencontre got a proper training camp for that. But Damian Maia is the highest level jiu-jitsu player that he's fought. He's definitely the only fighter that he's fought in the UFC that's going to be going for takedowns as thoroughly as Damian Maia does. And Damian Maia doesn't necessarily need to get a takedown, right? He's one of those guys that from the clinch, if you give him his back a little bit, he's going to jump on your back just like he did against Lyman Good. He's going to find those positions where he's going to be able to take advantage in the clinch. And as soon as he gets his paws around you, he's going to try to suck this into the jiu-jitsu realm. Now, if Bilal Muhammad had more power in his hands or was known to be a little bit more of a devastating striker, I'd be concerned for Damian Maia here, right? That's something that pretty much anybody can tell you. But Bilal is one of those guys that I don't think is great at anything, but he's really good at pretty much all of MMA, right? He doesn't have a background specifically in one thing. He's a mixed martial artist, which sets him apart from some of the lower level guys that he's fighting, like the Diego Limas and stuff. But Damian Maia is probably the highest level of opponent that he's faced, albeit it's Damian Maia who's going to be turning 44 in November. But I truly think that the threats that Maia brings to this fight is something that Bilal Muhammad has never dealt with in the UFC, probably not even in his regional scene too. I think the closest guy that comes to a grapple-heavy approach is Steve Carl. He beats him over a 5-round title fight in Titan FC. But again, it's a different approach with what you're getting here with Damian Maia. I think Takashi Sato is probably the only guy that had grappling success against Bilal Muhammad, albeit for a minute or so. I think in the second round or something where he's able to at least accrue a decent amount of top control. But Damian Maia is a big dude. A lot of people forget he used to fight at 185 pounds, even got a crack at the title back at UFC 112. And then once he came down to 170 pounds, you really see him start to tower over most of his opponents, and kind of his strength is enough to kind of just suck the fight into that jiu-jitsu realm and for him to be successful. So I am going to go with Maia. I think it was Scrap that actually brought up the point. Maia by a submission is plus 400. You gotta sprinkle a little bit on that, just because we've never seen Bilal Muhammad truly threaten in that realm. So I like Maia here. I'll take shit once again. I picked Jacare to beat Andre Muniz. I pick Francisco Trinaldo to beat Muslim Salikov, and I'll go with the 40-plus-year-old Brazilian once again because I never learned my lesson. And I'll go with Damian Maia to win by submission probably in the second round. Scott, how are you feeling about this matchup, brother?
Yeah, I'm also on Maia. Like
All right, sick.
it's tough when someone's 43 years old and like coming off a 15-month layoff and got knocked out in under 3 minutes. But like you said, he had good moments in that Gilbert Burns fight while it lasted. And 2019, like, wasn't that long ago. He racked off 3 solid wins. And 2018 and 2017, he won 3 5-hard rounds with, at the time, the top 3 welterweights in the world. Like, it's pretty aggressive to just say he's shot. It's possible, but I don't think we know that yet. And if we look at his record, outside of the 2011 loss to Munoz, the guy's never lost to someone that hasn't fought for a title or been a champion. So this is a big step down. Every time he's had these step downs, he's won. And when you look at Bilal Muhammad, 13 fights in the UFC, his best win is like a garbage split decision over Tim Means. Like, the guy hasn't really come out here and shown us much. And out of those 13 fights, he's never really fought anyone that's tested him in the grappling or wrestling department. And you nailed it in the head with the Sato fight. He didn't get off his back in that fight. The round ended. He showed that it was a short period of time, but he really didn't have an answer to get off his back. And now he's going to go and he's going to fight arguably one of the greatest MMA grapplers of all time. It seems like a bit of a stretch to me. So yeah, I'm gonna take Maia.
Yeah, if there was, like I said, if there was more of a knockout threat from Bilal Muhammad, I wouldn't be as confident in Damian Maia as I am. But I do think that Damian Maia has the chops to go out there and pull off the upset here. All right, we go on to our first 5-rounder that we got between Leon Edwards and Nate Diaz. I believe biggest favorite on the card here, Mr. Leon Edwards coming in. Now it seems like there's actually some money coming in on Nate Diaz, but still minus 550-ish for Leon Edwards, plus 475 for Nate Diaz. Gugabe, I'll actually let you kick this one off. Who you liking in this spot? Do you think the chalk goes out there and chalks, or do you think that Nate Diaz pulls off a 209 miracle?
Minus 600 is a bit tight, is a bit wide. I'm not betting Diaz, but like Edwards can be a bit hesitant to actually put a stamp on the fight, and Diaz is going to throw a lot of strikes, which you never know. But I got some early KO at plus 250 for Edwards. I think it's fairly live. Diaz does awfully against kicks. Edwards builds into them well. Edwards does crack. Like, he has that 7-second knockout against what's his name, and like and the elbows Diaz will bleed like badly, and you never want to win on the cut stop, but I think it's definitely a possibility, a strong one. Otherwise, Edwards should be just pretty comfortable fucking up. He's a punching bag. Main issue I could see is if Edwards decides to only win by like 3 strikes around and then gets fucked on the judges' scorecards or something, which is possible because like Edwards is particularly popular and he can leave the margins very tight. But otherwise, should be fine everywhere. Like, Diaz is not very good.
Yeah, I've had people like question me that like the entire week, how does Nate Diaz win this fight if he wins it? And I think it's Gugabe kind of touched on it. It's volume, staying in Leon Edwards' face, not giving him the space that he needs to breathe. And he's drowned people in the past, right? The one fight that comes to mind is the Michael Johnson fight, right? That was a fight that he wasn't supposed to win. He goes out there and outstrikes Michael Johnson over the majority of 3 rounds. But this is a 5-rounder against an elite welterweight who deserves, in my opinion, a legit number 1 contender fight, or at least a title shot. It's tough for me to see how Leon Edwards loses this fight. It's what I just laid out for you. If Nate Diaz is successful in doing what I just said, then yeah, probably he wins this fight. And there have been fights in the past for Leon Edwards that have gone 5 rounds that he's actually, if I'm not mistaken, he's dropped a round or 2, at least the 4th or 5th round to Donald Cerrone or Rafael dos Anjos. It can happen where his activity wanes in one of the later rounds, but you can't do that against Nate Diaz here. I think the approach that Leon Edwards may take, and a lot of people think on surface that Leon Edwards is just a striker. He has a decent grappling game too. He does a hunt for submissions at times. Not saying he's going to go out there and submit Nate Diaz, but he does a good job in terms of his controlling his opponents from on top. And I think that Nate Diaz, with his lack of takedown defense and his willingness to kind of just play guard and hope that he can throw up a submission off of his back, it's going to come to bite him in the ass. And I think that Leon Edwards should win at least 2 of these rounds with the grapple heavy approach, and then at least another 2 rounds with the striking heavy approach. I'm seeing the narrative out there that people want to go out there and play Leon Edwards to win by TKO inside the distance because Nate Diaz has scar tissue and he cuts open easily. But like, that's something very tough to fixate on and to say this is definitely going to happen. Like it's a rarity that actually happens. Like that cut against Jorge Masvidal really wasn't that bad. We have to remember that was down in the New York State, which is still relatively new to the MMA world. Their doctors are trying to be super safe, super cognizant of what the fans and the masses are seeing, especially in an event that's taking place in their state. So I believe that's why they actually ended up stopping the fight. If that happened in Vegas, that judge is going to be like, bleed on, brother. Let's get the last round and a half in this fight. because people want to see this fight. This is the main event, a BMF fight. This is what everybody wants to see. But New York's a little bit pussy, and they're just like, nah, let's stop this fight right now. But I fully would have expected that fight to go the full 5 rounds, just as I expect this one to. I believe Gugabe put it on the head in terms of Edwards by decision. I think that's the spot that I'd be chasing as well. I think that currently sits at Edwards by decision plus 165. I think that's a great line. I think he mollywops him from round 1 to round 5 at most. I think Nate maybe gets 1 round, but I'd even be surprised if that happens. But I do like Edwards by decision in this spot, and I think he cruises relatively easily. Let's be honest. The only reason Nate Diaz is in this spot is because he's Nate Diaz. Nobody else is just going to, come back from a loss and get a high-profile fight like this against a guy that probably deserves a title shot, and especially getting a non-main event, non-title fight 5-rounder. Only Nate Diaz or Conor McGregor could probably do that at this point in time. So yeah, I got Edwards by decision at plus 165. I love that spot. Scott, you gonna throw some Nate Diaz fire on us, or are you gonna go with the Leon Edwards squares over here?
Yeah, I mean, you have to go Edwards. Nate Diaz, he's a natural 155er. When you look at all his best performances, whether it's Cerrone, Johnson, Connor, like they're all against 155ers. Even if they're at 170, they're against natural 155ers. And we've seen what happens when he fights natural 170ers, whether it's Masvidal, Rory, Kim, like they just bully him. They beat him up, and it's not even competitive. So now you got Edwards, who's a legit 170er, like you said, on the verge of a title shot with a very strong striking skill set. So it seems pretty obvious Edwards is going to win.
I like it. Scrap, bring us home, baby. Don't throw a wrench in our plans.
Yeah, ridiculous mismatch. Yeah, I got on that early KO line, like plus 250 as well. I just don't see any way where Nate just doesn't eat a shit ton of strikes and take heaps of punishment. I don't think his durability is like what it once was, as we saw in the Masvidal fight. Like, as tough as the guy is, Leon's going to hit him a lot, really hard. We saw him come out hard against Bilal, like throwing heat. And then, yeah, Nate's been leaning on like his own clinch game a lot lately to get the win over Peterson. If he wants to hang out in the clinch against Leon, that's like the dude's thing, is elbowing your face off from the clinch. So yeah, I think Leon finishes him. Probably doesn't like flatline him, but it'll be some kind of mercy stoppage. He's gonna just whatever to the legs, the body, the head, cut stoppage. It's all live. Yeah, I just banana peel spot.
All right, we are absolute squares here, picking the minus 600 favorite, but you got to do what you got to do at certain points. All right, that brings us to our co-main event between Deiveson Figueiredo and Brandon Moreno. I believe I'm going to be kicking this one off for you guys. In terms of odds, we got minus 2, what is that? Actually, minus 190-ish now for Deiveson Figueiredo at 5 dimes, plus 175 is the return on Moreno. It seems like most other bookies have Deiveson hanging around that minus 220-ish range, which is probably accurate. I think there's some of that, Figueiredo looked bad on the scales. Let's throw some money on Brandon Moreno type of money coming in. And, have you guys not seen Figueiredo on the scales before? That's what he pretty much always looks like. It's always a tough weight cut for him. I always get flashbacks and memories of him trying to make that weight against Jared Brooks and pretty much crying on his way to the scale, but still goes out there, gets... that was a close fight. That was probably the closest fight that he's had in the UFC outside of the one that he lost to Jussier Formiga, and then obviously the draw to Brandon Moreno last time around. But I still expect the God of War to go out there and do what the God of War does. He stalks his opponents. A lot of his opponents get intimidated by the power that's coming their way. Like wide winging shots from Figueiredo, but he makes it work because he's fast, he's explosive, he's able to close that distance and maintain that distance at a rate that makes him comfortable, right? Brandon Moreno did a really good job in that first fight in terms of getting his jab going, and I felt like that's the reason he was able to be successful in the rounds that he actually won. And he was successful in terms of getting a little bit of control time against Deiveson by taking him down, I believe, in that 4th round. But more often than not, you see Deiveson like a cat spring off of his back. If he's not jumping guillotine, he does a good job in terms of digging those butterfly hooks, pushing off against his opponent, and then getting back to his feet. He's very springy. So if anybody thinks that Figueiredo is going to slow down later in his fights, I just don't think it's going to happen. I think we still see a full-powered Figueiredo come out there and give us what God of War actually does. And I think it's going to be predicated on him stalking Moreno for the majority of this fight. Anytime Moreno wants to throw a jab, hopefully counter to try to nullify the amount of jabs that are coming his way. And I think Figueiredo wins this fight. I think he actually wins by decision. Moreno is durable as hell. Like, I hate to be cliche, but that Mexican chin just don't crack. And he just goes out there and takes insane amounts of punishment from his past opponents, yet still keeps on chugging and seeing the judges' scorecards. I'm expecting the same thing from Figueiredo here. I think Figueiredo just stalks him, maybe drops around, but I do think that Davison wins this fight via decision. Fun fight. Hopefully it even lives up to half of what the last one was. That was a fight of the year contender, but I still do think that we get and still with Davison Figueiredo. The spot that I'd be looking at the most, Figueiredo by decision. I'll give you guys that line real quick. We got Davison or Figueiredo by decision plus 335. I'm gonna have to sprinkle a little bit of that. Scott, how are you feeling about this matchup? You think Moreno's live? You think he pulls it off?
Yeah, I got Moreno. I've been pretty vocal. I don't actually think Fix is that good. Getting finishes is cool, but if you can't consistently win rounds at the top level, your game plan just isn't working. And I think so. The last fight was actually a bit of an outlier in that he outstruck Moreno, but there were large gaps in that fight where he was getting outstruck, getting out wrestled. And I think when we look at all his fights, there's like massive gaps of that. It's tough to argue against results because he's getting these finishes early. But if you look at the Elliott fight, like 3 minutes in, like look at the stats on that. There's no way he was winning that round if he doesn't get finished. And same as the Perez fight, and same as the Joe B1 fight. He's just getting outlanded on and out wrestled the entire time until he gets these finishes. And like I said, we saw that in the gaps in the Moreno fight. And we did see him slow down. He defended takedowns well, but as you see, like as the fight goes on, he spent more time off his back when he got taken down. He didn't get away from punches as much. Moreno started really hitting that wing overhand that he was throwing as the fight went on. And also, I think there's a bit of variance that went his way on that in the fifth round there. Moreno actually completely slowed down in that fifth round, and I believe it was from an injury. I think if Moreno finds himself in a fifth round again, I think Figs wins that at a very low percentage, the fifth round. And even that third round, people like to say if that point wasn't taken away, Figs wins that fight. But that third round, the beginning of that round was Moreno's best round up until that foul, which was a very flagrant foul in the third one. And then Figs got that break, and then he came back and eked out that round. No foul, no break, and Moreno wins that round 10-9 and wins that fight. So I think between volume, better cardio, and like you said, his insane durability, he's going to find a way to win this fight.
I don't hate it. I do want to quickly make a caveat regarding that injury in the fifth round. I did search it up to see if he actually had an injury. Apparently, he said that his shoulder was just a little bit jacked up from all the jabs that he was throwing. It was no injury, but he was definitely a little bit sore due to the fact that he just kept throwing that jab out there. Scrap, you going with the underdog here as well? Do you think that Moreno has some solid value there, or do you think that the God of War gets it done once again?
Yeah, pretty much with Scott on this one. I also think Figueiredo is nowhere near as good as like public perception, like being a potent finisher will tend to do that to, how people think of you. I was on Moreno last time. I'm on him again. I don't see how you can be going out there and laying like minus 200 or worse on Figueiredo when the last fight played out so close. And yeah, people say he only won because of the point deduction, but Scott, raises a really good point. If he hadn't full force punted Moreno in the groin, who's to say Moreno wouldn't have, taken control of that fight down the stretch. So yeah, Moreno clearly the value side for me. I think he can hang in the volume. He can mix things up with his wrestling. He's got the cardio and the durability. So Moreno pretty clearly the side for me. The only thing is I probably wouldn't go too big pre-fight because I do have a hard time seeing him win the first round. So I think there's a good chance you get like plus 400 or something crazy after the first round, and that's probably a good spot to jump in. But yeah, otherwise pretty much on board with everything Scott said there.
Yeah, we know that Figueiredo usually starts off like a banshee in all of his first rounds. So yeah, great point brought up by Scrap there in terms of this is a great live betting opportunity, especially if you think that Moreno wins this fight. Gagabe, you gonna side with the underdog as well and leave me on an island here with Figueiredo, or how are you seeing this fight go down?
I think Figueiredo line's probably about the right price. Moreno's tough, but again, I was always I played Moreno the first time because I was skeptical about Figueiredo's gas tank, but then he proved he could do Figueiredo shit for 25 minutes, which was incredible because nobody should be able to do Figueiredo shit for 25 minutes. Yeah, like based on the earlier fights against Joe B, he slowed down the first time, but Figueiredo was a magical fucking goblin. He's just ridiculous. Like, he's one of these guys you can't bet because he just keeps showing deeper. He just keeps showing crazier and crazier athletic skills. It's insane. But I think Moreno RTD is a bit wide though. It's like plus 700. KO was like plus 1200 here. I'm not going consistently, but I think it should be higher than that. Like, Figueiredo is very hittable, and good chance it ends up being another crazy war. But like, I think minus 140 minus 200 for Figueiredo is about where I'd price it, but I think the RTD is about wide. So, yeah. But again, because Moreno just has ridiculous durability, so it's just like they can just get to, just pick up. There'll be another crazy war. Should be good watching, and yeah.
In terms of a side, I'm sorry, I don't think I picked up on it. Did you get Figueiredo or Moreno?
I think Figueiredo should win. No bet, but yeah, I think Figueiredo should win.
Perfect. For the purpose of the show, I do need a legitimate prediction, so I'm glad that you're able to provide that there. All right, that brings us to our main event, another rematch here. If you guys remember, where Israel Adesanya fought Marvin Vettori about 3 years ago now, where Adesanya came out on the winning end via split decision. In terms of the odds, that time it was minus 245 for Adesanya. Now he's still hovering around roughly that same mark. I did see earlier in the week he was a little bit bigger of a favorite, but it seems like a little bit of Marvin Vettori money is starting to come in. Scott, I'm going to let you kick this breakdown for us. Do you think that Marvin Vettori springs the upset, or does Izzy reign supreme in the middleweight division?
Yeah, I've got Izzy here. It's an interesting fight because, as we saw in the last fight, Izzy really can't get off his back. However, I don't think it's a big stretch to say that on the feet, Marvin probably can't compete. At least he's not going to go out there and win rounds or knock out Izzy. So it all comes down to the takedown. Marvin lands 53%, 2.22 takedowns per 15 minutes, but it's against a much different type of fighter, so I don't know how relevant that is. What I do think, though, is Jan's success in wrestling came a lot from his ability to nullify Izzy on the feet. He checked leg kicks at an extremely high rate, and that really helped. So even though he was getting caught biting on feints, he was able to take the passive line and sort of just check leg kicks, and it wasn't too big of a deal. Where I think Vettori's going to get caught biting on feints, and he's either going to get over aggressive, which is not going to go well for him, or if he gets passive, it's just going to lead to him eating those kicks. I don't think he has the same ability to check them, and in which case he's not going to be able to get inside, not going to be able to set up his takedowns in the way Jan was. So I got to go Izzy.
All right, Scrap. I've been seeing a lot of differing opinions regarding this matchup. A lot of people think that there's some decent value on Vettori, but do you think he pulls it off, or do you think Izzy retains once again?
No, I think Izzy puts a clinic on him. I mean, Scott raised again a lot of good points. I just think against Jan, I think Izzy was expecting to be able to fluster Jan and pull out those sloppy blitzes like we'd seen in the past. And then when that wasn't happening and Jan was staying really composed, you saw Izzy basically lose his control of the distance, which he usually does so well. And he was stepping super deep in the pocket, and to hit those takedowns, Jan was basically just bending over at the waist and connecting his hands because Izzy was just right there. I don't think Vettori is going to be able to do that. I expect Izzy just to pick him off from the outside. Vettori will probably pretty reliably bite the mouthpiece, come forward, give Izzy plenty of chances to land counters. And then we saw against Holland, Vettori can be hurt, on the feet. Maybe if he manages to hit some takedowns, could happen. I don't think he has any massive, racks up any extended control time on top. I think the distance is going to be too much. I just don't see him getting past the kicking game of Izzy. And yeah, I expect Izzy to probably get a knockout, to be honest, at some point, because I just think Vettori kind of runs out of ideas and just slams his head into a brick wall until he gets himself knocked out.
Gagabi, it's definitely hard to trust Vettori in terms of playing a disciplined game plan, especially with how we've been seeing him act over the last couple of days during fight week. The guy is a complete meathead. That's pretty much known to everybody. But he needs to play a pretty disciplined game plan here to go out there and nullify the striking approach of Izzy and get his grappling game going, which is probably his best way to win this fight. Do you think Vettori actually pulls it off, or do you think that Israel Adesanya retains once again?
I think he's definitely live. Gastelum, same camp, came in a lot of trouble. First fight, the Vettori almost won it. And it's just there's not any discipline. He just needs to keep coming forward. It's kind of the opposite of discipline. If he thinks about what he's doing too much, he'll start backing off and he'll give Israel time to recover. And so my view is just Vettori just needs to get in his face, extend exchange as long as possible, go for takedowns. I think that Vettori is definitely the side here. Probably another guy is probably best to enter. Both Moreno and Vettori probably best to enter after a round because they're not sure if they're going to have that great first round. But even with Israel, he's traditionally been very slow. He's been a fairly slow starter. But yeah, consequently, I just see Vettori as, I think Vettori should be able to make him work, should be able to get stuff out of him. And really that Jan fight was, I think that's quite illustrative of how Vettori can make this win. Unless Israel can KO him, which I don't think he can, the massive clip, but it's just an issue of, Vettori just does a lot of shit. He just comes forward constantly, makes you work, and a takedown is probably a round or a fight. Yeah, Vettori. Yeah, Italy will dominate this card. Vendramini and Vettori is the parlay of the week.
So you're on the Vettori side of things, yeah?
Yeah, Vettori.
Awesome.
Pretty clearly, in my opinion.
All right, so it's going to be 2-2. I am on the Vettori side of things as well here. We did see him have success in that first fight in that third round, getting Adesanya down. Like I believe Scott said, it didn't seem like Adesanya had much off of his back in that situation. Even in the Jan Blachowicz fight, and people are going to go out there and be like, oh, Jan Blachowicz, 205, or a big guy. That's probably why Izzy wasn't able to get off of his back. But Vettori was able to do it for the majority of the third round the first time that they fought. And if anything, I think Vettori's even on more Mexican supplements this time around, and is probably a bigger guy this time around than he was the last time that they fought. It seems like what Israel Adesanya was successful with against Jan Blachowicz and Marvin Vettori earlier in their fights was that they were really biting on the feints very heavily, right? Anytime Izzy would throw a feint out there, you'd see them react to it very pretty dramatically, and Adesanya was able to capitalize on it by just landing some strikes after that, countering them, whatever it may be. But the later the fight, when it was a lot easier for these guys to close the distance and drag the fight to the ground, like Kelvin Gastelum landed a takedown or two, I believe, in that fight, but it was just not strong enough in terms of being able to keep Adesanya down. And we know, Kelvin Gastelum probably deserves actually to be at 170 pounds rather than 185. But I still do think that Vettori can close the distance. I think he is durable enough to take what Adesanya throws at him and then eventually close the distance to drag this fight to the ground. The longer that it goes, it seems it's harder for Adesanya to, really rely on his takedown defense and his ability to get back to his feet. And, luckily for Jan Blachowicz, he still had an extra 2 rounds to work with after that third round, whereas Vettori only had that third round. Now he has an extra 2 rounds to go out there and try to implement the same type of game plan. My 1 or 2 concerns I'll say about Vettori. One, if we see Adesanya go out there and implement the same game plan that he did against Paulo Costa, beat up that calf kick, beat up that lead leg, and debilitate Marvin Vettori per se, and then just let his hands go and try to pick him apart that way, because that will definitely hinder the success that Vettori will have in terms of landing the takedowns and being on the front foot. And then secondly, is more so in terms of if Vettori if you guys remember from the Jack Hermanson fight, Vettori pretty much took off that entire third round, I believe, just to get his energy back up so that he can go out there and win the 4th and 5th round, which is exactly what he did. You can't take a round off against a guy like Israel Adesanya. You will pay for it dearly. So hopefully Vettori can go out there and give us at least a solid 4 rounds and then a 1 round where he's able to survive it. But I see him landing takedowns here, man. I see him. It's just not a good look when Adesanya looks like a fish off of his back. And before the Blachowicz fight, I was very impressed with his takedown defense. I was very impressed with his ability to, get back to his feet when he spring back to his feet. Then I just ever so slightly forgot about the Vettori fight. I don't know why I just left that out of my mind when I was looking into the Blachowicz fight. And then again, Blachowicz, shows that flaw in Izzy's game. But yeah, I like Vettori here. I think there's some solid value on him. I think there's even solid value on him to win by decision, which is hovering around that plus 420-ish range. I think that's a good spot. But even at plus 220 as an underdog, I think you're getting some good value there too. So there you have it. I'm on Vettori. Gagabe's on Vettori, and Scott and Scrap are on Izzy. So we'll see who comes out on the winning end tomorrow night. As I like to wrap up the show, as always, I'm going to give you guys the lock of the night plays for all 3 of these guys so that you guys can kind of get into their minds in terms of what spots they feel most confident about for this weekend. So we'll start off with Scott. What is your most confident play or your lock of the night play for UFC 263?
Give me Jojo Calderwood, -140.
All right. I like it. Scrap, how are you feeling about this one? What's your favorite bet on this card?
Tough one. For me, I'm going to go Brad Riddell.
Brad Riddell, interesting. You get a plus 120 dog for a Scrap's most confident play on the card. And I did give a caveat to these guys. You can't give me anything worse than minus 250. So they might be a little bit more pressed, because otherwise I'm sure they would all pick Leon Edwards. Gagabe, what's the spot that you feel most confident in this on this card?
Stephen Peterson. I think he just fucks up Hooper. Very, very hittable. It's favorable. And again, he could just be he could actually be the better grappler. People are acting like Hooper is like Chrome Gracie. He's not. He's nowhere near that proven.
I like it. For me, it's actually going to be props. I do like either Jamal Hill by KO at -125 or Leon Edwards by decision at +165. Those are the two spots I feel most confident about. Yeah, there you have it. You get all of our lock of the night plays there. Hopefully we're able to turn that into some money for you guys. Again, make sure you guys follow these guys. Their Twitter links are in the description below. And it seems like we're going to be right in time to get off the stream and watch the main event on Bellator between Douglas Lima and Yaroslav Amosov. But before we do that, I do want to spin around the horn once again, just to let everybody plug in whatever they want to plug and let the fans know where they can find you guys if you want to continue to follow them after this stream. So, Scott, where can everybody find your stuff? And go ahead and plug yourself, my brother.
Yeah, nothing to plug. Like you said, Twitter description in the bottom. Just click on that.
There we go. At Scott_Shelvlock. I always used to think it's Chevlock because that sounds cooler. Let's be honest. I'm sure a lot of people have screwed it up in the past.
My whole life.
All right, Scrap, where can they find you and plug away anything you'd like to plug, my brother?
Yeah, same. Just on Twitter, but not really talking to people much on Twitter these days because most people on there are idiots.
Pretty straightforward and simple. I'm glad with his approach there. That the haters do come out when you have a losing week, but they're very silent when you have a winning week. Gugabe, you've been around the industry for a while now. I know you got some things going on. It's not just Twitter for you. So go ahead and plug whatever you like to plug, my guy.
Haven't really got much. Probably doing my tweet storm, my weekly tweet storm in probably half an hour or something when I get around to it to get lunch. Yeah, I've got Betfair tips up on there. It's like free stuff. Bet MMA is always good. And again, like this week's pretty quiet. I think next event's a lot better in terms of betting. Like I can see like 6 good lines there already. And yeah, Procopio will scalp that O'Neal.
If I'm not mistaken, you and Technical Tim are going to be reviving your podcast, no?
Yeah, once for the next Connor card, whenever it is, I think next month, some
July
point.
10th.
Yep.
There we go. All right, make sure you guys catch Technical Tim, who's actually going to be on the podcast next week. I didn't want to put them on at the same time because you guys always hear them talking to each other. So I did want to split them up here, but to make sure you guys check out the podcast when they revive it in July. All right, shout out to all 3 of the guys that we got on, Scott, Scrap, Capper, and Gugabe. Appreciate everybody that's spending their Friday evening with us, watching Bellator on in the background. Hopefully we were able to give you guys some proper tips that you guys can go out there and turn into some cash for yourselves tomorrow night. So good luck to everybody on your bets, and I'll see you guys once again next week for the Ultimate Weigh-In Show. Have some fun tomorrow night, and hopefully Jamal Hill can go out there